Memorizing is not a single process. It takes place in 3 distinct stages. There's encoding, when you're actually getting information into your brain in the first place. Then there's consolidation, which is where you're going from short-term memory to long-term memory. And finally, there's retrieval. That's getting the information out again when you need it. If any one of these stages isn't done well, then you're going to struggle. But there are 2 particularly important things to understand about the later stages. Long-term memory is crucial. It's what you're aiming for so that you don't have to play something again every day in order to refresh your memory. And that's why you need the consolidation phase. Because this long-term memory is stable and essentially unlimited. So when you tap into it, you can memorize much more material. And unlike short-term memory, this long-term memory is robust in pressure situations, like performing from memory. Then there's the retrieval stage. It's a much bigger piece of the puzzle than most people think. A lot of the issues where people think they've forgotten something actually come down to retrieval. So if you're not doing a good job at practicing this stage, it can look like the information isn't in your brain when it actually is, and you're just unable to get it out again. So if you're not deliberately working on the consolidation and retrieval stages, then you're actually sabotaging yourself in a couple of ways. When you rely on repetition, you're just doing the encode stage of memorization over and over. And usually you're doing it inefficiently at that, but that's something for later. And this never gets you onto the consolidate or retrieve stages. And so the memory never forms strongly, no matter how much time you spend on this. If you're lucky, you do a bad job at best of getting it into your short-term memory. But many people try this with no results, and they wrongly assume that they simply can't memorize at all. And there's lots of research to back this up. For example, scientists analysed the brains of London taxi drivers and bus drivers. The hippocampus, a region of the brain involved in spatial memory, grew significantly larger in taxi drivers, but there was no such change in the bus drivers' brains. Now, both of these groups navigate by memory every day. This means that it's not the number of repetitions that's determining whether their brain changes or not. The bus drivers simply repeated the same routes over and over again, exactly like how most musicians go about memorizing a piece of music, while the taxi drivers had to work out a unique new route every time. And this naturally forced the taxi drivers to use memorization strategies that line up with the 3 stages of memorization we're talking about here. And it's the same in music. When you understand the 3 stages, you can laser target each stage separately. This is a much more efficient way to do things. So it takes less time and makes your life much easier. And the results you get are much more secure. And this is especially the case for people who feel that their memory is getting worse as they get older. Because when you're younger, you can get away with shortcuts. It's still possible to memorize well when you're older, but you have to do everything in the right order and with all the steps. And it's worth saying that when you do this right, it does take a little bit longer to get something memorized initially, because you're deliberately splitting out these 3 stages. But because it sticks so much better when you do it this way, you save loads of time overall. And that's not to mention how much more secure the memories are in the end. And this works whether you normally memorize by reading sheet music or whether you learn by ear or any other way. It really doesn't matter how you do it. It's what's going on in your brain. If you do that right, you'll get things memorized nicely. Here's what happened when one of my students started to apply the 3 stages of memory. It shows what a big difference this can make. Perry said, "Having never played a piece from memory, I was unsure about my chance of success. I had always thought repetition would do the job, and it hadn't. Mark's approach was effective. I memorized a 4-minute solo and performed it in public. Since I didn't have to look at the score, I could focus on expressiveness and connecting with the audience." Inside the course, I show you exactly how to address each of the 3 stages in order, with specific exercises for each stage that you can simply plug into whatever you're memorizing. This means that you'll memorize new repertoire more quickly and more effectively, and you'll have it stick securely in your long-term memory.